Sheila was taking care of her schizophrenic brother. She was a very doting sister. She would let her brother come down every couple of weeks. Her brother liked to stay with her because it kind of gave him a sense of comfort. I mean, his schizophrenia was severe. It was so severe that any little thing could really set him off, including Sheila being married. See, her brother was a little bit possessive of her, and then also he wanted things to be just like they were when they were kids. He wanted her just like she was, unmarried and his sister. But the problem is, Sheila is married. And she's married to a guy named Paul. But Paul is such a good guy. He is a great guy. Now, he hasn't gotten a chance to meet Sheila's brother yet, but he wants to make a good impression on her family, on her brother when it's time. So even though he and Sheila have been married for several years, whenever Sheila's brother is supposed to come down to stay, Paul leaves. And not only does he leave, he packs up all of his stuff. He takes photos, clothes, shoes, anything that leaves a trace that Paul was there. He takes it out of the house and he hides it in his car and he goes away for the weekend. That way, when Sheila's brother comes to stay with her, he thinks that his sister is single and he's happy and it doesn't bother him at all. And this goes on for a while. Sheila would tell Paul that her brother was having a hard time and needed to come down, and it wasn't time for them to meet yet, but he needed to pack his things up and leave quickly. And so that's exactly what Paul would do. So Sheila says goodbye, Paul leaves, and then Sheila's brother comes over, and they spend the weekend together, and then he leaves, and Paul comes back home. Because Sheila's brother was there, right? Sheila's brother is real, right? Welcome back. It's another week. It's another Sinister. This week's story has been covered quite a bit because not only will Sheila not stop talking about literally nothing, like when she speaks, she just speaks in circles. It's actually crazy. But this story is so insane. I'm just gonna fast forward you a little bit to something that happens at the end, but it's fine because you're gonna be like, how did we get here? Can you imagine if your murderous ex-girlfriend decides to represent herself in court, and because of that, when you're a witness, you have to testify, and now you're getting cross-examined by your own murderous ex-girlfriend on the stand over a murder that she committed? Like, I could not believe this when I was looking at this. Sheila Davalloo ended up representing herself in court, and she walked up to her ex-boyfriend. I mean, she's like picking up papers like Leslie Abrams, and she goes, "Good morning, Mr. Sessler." Like, that wasn't her ex-boyfriend. I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. But I don't know if that makes any sense to you. Let me tell you the whole story. And let me tell you the whole story. I literally cannot believe that. Good afternoon, Mr. Sessler. Oh my God. All of this to say, listen, every episode of Sinister is absolutely wild, okay? It's wild. But I really mean this when I say Sheila Davalloo is one of the most dangerous people that I have ever talked about on this channel. When she decides that you have to go, all hell breaks loose in her mind. And she cannot and will not control it. God, she's a fucking nut job. Okay. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to help you create a website for your dream business. Whether you're selling products, courses, or just writing a blog, Squarespace has everything you need to get your website up in just minutes. And hey, if you're somebody that doesn't have a keen eye for aesthetics, don't worry. They have hundreds of customizable designs that you can use to make your website look perfect. You can also create a shop incredibly easily where you can just sell your products and collect payments from your customers. Yes, if you've got a good idea that you're passionate about, it can be that easy. Squarespace has multiple designs, multiple features to help set up your business, and also SEO tools to help get your website discovered. Those are the little keywords that make your website pop up a little bit higher on Google or any search engine that you use. Yeah, they've got that all built in. You don't have to spend hours learning it through YouTube tutorials or thousands hiring somebody. You can just do it all within Squarespace. It's actually incredible. You know, I told you guys before, I remember back in the day when I was a child and I was typing up my own HTML and CSS codes. You guys you don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to do that. All you have to do is just sign up at Squarespace. Now, if you want to start a website for your business and you want 10% off, you can use my code to get 10% off on a website or the domain name. So just go to squarespace.com/sinister. That's squarespace.com/sinister. Get started. Or, even if you don't have a big business idea yet, it's a fun little hobby. Have a website. Why not? Do it. Let's go. So Sheila Davalloo was born in Iran, May 11th, 1969. There's not a lot of information about her past or, her home that she grew up in. But what we do know is her family immigrated to the United States during the Iranian Revolution. There could be a multitude of reasons why they decided to move, but it was a pretty turbulent time in Iran. And also, look, when people have set up a life for themselves in their home country and out of nowhere, they have to move and relocate to a new place, set up new businesses, protect their family, adopt this new culture, adopt this new language, all of this. It can be very, very frustrating for parents, but then they also feel like they really need to be strong and take care of their kids. But they're honestly getting beat down every day by this massive change in their life. So, like I said, there's not a lot of information. Was it a wonderful, happy childhood and they're like, oh, great, we're here? Or was it a really big culture shift and that created some turmoil in the household? Not entirely sure, but because that happens pretty commonly, I want to leave that piece of information there. So Sheila was born in Iran, but, she moved to New York and she assimilated into American culture pretty quickly. This was Sheila's thing. She was studious. She got straight into school. She started making friends. New York worked for her. Her family very much supported her education. They supported her relationships. They actually wanted to elevate Sheila, you are smart and you are capable and you have all of these opportunities and you can do all of these things. And she really did seize the opportunities. She was a smart girl. While Sheila is in high school, she ends up meeting her first love, a guy named Fareed. And then she actually ends up marrying him shortly after. So she married her high school sweetheart and then just got swept right off into college. Oh, this sounds like such a normal upbringing. It's not gonna be. So next, she goes to the University of Stony Brook and she gets a degree in biochemistry. She was a smart girl. That's one of those subjects that I don't even touch unless I'm trying to prove myself. That's a subject that I would pick that I know I can't do, but I know everybody would be like, wow, biochemistry. She was a smart girl. Not only that, she then afterwards went to New York Medical College for her graduate degree. She was dedicated. Okay. Now, this is where things start to shake up a little bit. Sheila is good at doing schoolwork, even though, some of us might argue it can be a little boring, right? It's a little repetitive. It's not, it's you're studious, right? It's not supposed to be fun. But she needs a little bit of fun, and she's also not getting it in her relationship. She was bored. I think that's really important to say because this pattern of her getting disillusioned with the relationship and just feeling bored and then acting out will come up multiple times. But in this case, where Sheila was bored, she ends up meeting this other guy, and his name is Paul Christos. And Sheila lays it on thick with Paul. But she not only lays it on thick with Paul, they start a little relationship, they start hooking up, and she never tells him that she is married. I've heard of so many stories of cheating, affairs, but usually it's maybe a guy cheating on his wife with another woman, and the other woman knows that he's married and he's stringing her along or something, and then just, it's a mess, right? But there's that, yeah, I am married, but Sheila just straight up presented herself as a single woman to Paul for months. For months, even though she's fully married and fully going back home. So she doesn't tell Paul about Fareed, her husband, and then she doesn't tell Fareed about Paul, her new little boy toy. I don't know. She just carries this affair on for months. I'm like, did she get some kind of high out of the deceit or something like that? I don't really know what her goal was, but ultimately Fareed finds out and he's like, no, you gotta go. We're not doing this. So he divorces her. This is music to Sheila's ears because now she's out of this relationship with her husband and she's free to fully pursue Paul. And she does. But she still never tells Paul that she was married and the whole time it was an affair. This is some of the most just blatant deceit that I have ever really seen in a case. Sheila does what Sheila wants, and Sheila is a liar. She is a textbook, can't stop, won't stop, loves to lie, loves to get away with it, will lie to your face, like no remorse, doesn't give a shit, liar. That's who she is. She tends to pick men that are very like go with the flow, right? If you end up in a relationship with an abuser, it's usually because you're the perfect prey for them. You fall for their tricks. So Sheila was often looking for these men that were a little, not necessarily gullible, but kind of just go with the flow. They trust you. She had a very calm demeanor to her. And so they just kind of said, okay, Sheila. And she liked that. She was never going to date somebody that pushed her or called her out on her lies. These were all men that were basically like, okay. And that's what she liked. So it's not clear if Paul ever found out about Fareed, or even if he did find something out, like what did Sheila tell him? Because God knows it's not the truth. But regardless, they really hit it off and the relationship is going well. And Paul proposes and he becomes Sheila Davalloo's second husband. So they get married in 2000, and then in 2001, they moved to Pleasantville, New York. It's a place in Westchester County, and life is pretty good. I mean, Sheila's done this before. She's gotten married. She's settled into the marriage. She's gotten comfortable, and that's exactly what they do. But there's quite a bit of distance between them. Paul actually had a job at Cornell University, which was like more in New York City. And then Sheila was working at Purdue Pharma, which was in Connecticut. They had pretty long commutes, different locations, opposite directions. And there was a little bit of mental distance in the home as well after a while. But that's life. That's marriage, right? You kind of just settle into it and you're like, okay, well, what's next? But as we know, Sheila gets bored, and she doesn't like when she's bored. She's got to do something. She's got to have some kind of distraction. She's got to have some kind of chaos. And I call it chaos because I think cycling between partners and lying to everybody is pretty chaotic. So once again, Sheila meets another guy, and this guy's name is Nelson Sessler. Somebody actually later described Nelson Sessler as a, quote, quiet and subdued man. But, you know, Sheila thought that he was good looking. She said he was funny. Those are the things that she said she liked about Nelson. But he's exactly like the other types of guys that she's dated. Kind of gullible and kind of go with the flow. She likes that. This is her perfect prey. Something that she likes to look at that can be easily manipulated. Sheila meets Nelson at Purdue Pharma, the place that they work. They're co-workers, but kind of in, different areas. At this event that they meet up at, they hit it off immediately. I mean, to the point that they started a sexual relationship pretty much right away. What I think is really interesting about this is I saw the episode of Killer Women with Sheila Davalloo, where she pretty much in present day speaks about her crimes. And look, I'm going to be honest with you guys. One, Sheila, when she speaks to you like this. For audio listeners, my head is just tilted up. It's very proud. It's very chin up. It's looking down at you, like looking down her nose like a freaking barrel of a gun, like you're a vermin, like you're nothing, you're an insect. That's how she looks at people when she's talking to them. She's like, yes, yes. And also, she has a couple of other strange behaviors just in the way she speaks. She's just very much talking in circles, never can answer a full question. Seems kind of like she's trying to always find her words, but her head is always tilted up. All of this to say, Sheila doesn't have any game. I don't know how these two hit it off. I don't know if Nelson was just physically attracted to her or what, but I really mean this when I say it, and I hope somebody that has seen this episode of Killer Women can back me up. She's a very strange person. I have seen a lot of different mannerisms or behaviors. Sheila Davalloo is like, if I met her and I spoke with her for 30 seconds, I would be like, oh, what is that? Ew, oh, whoa. Like, it's just very strange demeanor. So they meet at this event and Nelson's like, yes, I like you. And Sheila's like, oh, I really like you. And they start a sexual relationship. But just like in the previous full-on affair, Sheila doesn't tell Paul about Nelson, and Nelson doesn't know about Paul. New guy Nelson doesn't even know that Sheila is married. So Nelson and Sheila had been involved for a couple of months. How she manages to hide these relationships from her partner is just crazy. I mean, it kind of just goes back to the types of guys she picks. She wants guys that are easy to manipulate. If you are a person that is easy to manipulate, too empathetic, or too trusting, these people want to eat you alive, and they are looking for you. So Sheila kind of feels like Nelson's just eating out of the palm of her hand. She's got these two guys. She's got all this attention. She's getting one over on her husband, getting one over on Nelson all the time. Ha 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 ha. And then Nelson gets a girlfriend, but not just any girlfriend. He starts dating Annalisa Raymundo, and she's a pretty little thing. Anna is the type of girl that you are immediately intimidated by because she's wifey material. And not in the way that Sheila has done it. Yes, Sheila's been married twice, but she did it by manipulating these men. And she knows it. It wasn't even authentic. The love had died. It was just gone, you know? But Annalisa Raymundo, this was a girl that when you meet her, I mean, literally, you want to take her home to your mom. You want to take her home to your whole family. She's somebody that you're like, oh, I could see myself being with you for 20, 30, 40 years. And this was evident because Nelson started dating her, not just hooking up with her like he was with Sheila. He started dating Annalisa Raymundo almost immediately. Also, get this, Annalisa wasn't just wifey material. She was also a Harvard graduate. She was pretty athletic. She liked to take care of herself. She was 32 years old, and she was an executive at the pharmaceutical company. So she's got a high up position. She's got this beautiful waterfront condo. She is incredibly intimidating to somebody like Sheila, who is just really empty at her core. And Annalisa is somebody that loves life. People love to watch her live life. People like to be in her life. People love to support her and cheer her on. They're happy for her, and she's happy to be here. And that makes Sheila so angry. And not only is she resentful for Annalisa's zest for life, but also now she's dating the object of Sheila's affection. Now, it's unclear how quickly Nelson actually asked Anna to officially be his girlfriend, but there was a period of time where he was seeing Annalisa and he was seeing Sheila. This was a pretty turbulent time for Sheila because, unlike her, Nelson is actually a little bit more forthcoming that he's seeing somebody else and seeing where things go. Sheila doesn't want to lose him, so, she kind of just, plays along. But some really strange things start happening. Anna is just charming Nelson left and right. He cannot take his eyes off of her, and Sheila wants the attention back. But she's a manipulator, so she's gonna play dirty a little bit. Sheila ends up finding out a way to hack into Nelson's voicemails at work. Like, she's figured out a number to dial or something where she can call in and listen to his voicemails. Remember, this is like the early 2000s. They work in an office together. She doesn't need his cell phone for this. But she kind of starts listening to his voicemails on a regular basis. No big deal. Just checking in on her man. She is like, this is not that serious. I'm just keeping tabs. And she's listening to his voicemails all the time when they come in. And then one day she finds out through one of his voicemails that he is going to be flying to Las Vegas. And what does Sheila do? She also decides to book a ticket to Las Vegas on the same flight. And she shows up at the airport and she finds Nelson and just plops right down next to him like, oh my God, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, Sheila. And she's like, how crazy is it that we're on the same flight? She was so desperate for a morsel of his time that she booked a flight so that she could sit next to him and chat with him on the plane for a couple hours and act like it was a coincidence. I know some of y'all have ended up at a party or the mall or somewhere like on accident, like, oh my God, what are you doing here? But going to the airport, buying a ticket and pretending like you weren't listening to his voicemail is fucking insane. It's absolutely insane. So Nelson, once again, He doesn't pick up on this as being weird at all. Like, she's got her weird reason why she's going to Vegas too. Like, he's just like, oh, okay. But in retrospect, in the context of everything that's about to happen, this is just an insane detail. Supposedly, her showing up at the airport doesn't scare Nelson. However, he was already inching towards, hey, I want to be with Annalisa, so we need to cut this off. And that's exactly what he does. He breaks things off with Sheila Davalloo because he wants to fully commit himself to Annalisa Raymundo. This really kickstarts an obsession for Sheila. She cannot handle the rejection. She also is like, I'm the one that's always in control. She's the manipulator. That's why they're manipulating things. They want to be in control. And now she has lost the guy that she's interested in, even though she has her fucking husband at home, and she's lost all control. She doesn't want to be second best. But Nelson and Annalisa, they are already moving on. They have moved in together, and Sheila finds out that Nelson went with Annalisa to one of her family members' weddings. It is getting serious, and the door is about to be completely shut for Sheila. Things were going so strong for Nelson and Annalisa until one night they were supposed to meet up with a couple of friends, and neither of them show up. The friends are calling Anna over and over again, and this is just so unlike her, but she's not answering. And then the next day, they find out exactly what happened. On November 8th, 2002, a 911 dispatcher gets this very strange call. And it's this woman that answers and says, "Hello, I think a guy has attacked my neighbor. I don't know her name, but she's my neighbor. She lives in 105. I saw a guy go into her apartment." Even the way this person was speaking sounded almost unnatural, and their claim was very strange. The dispatcher is like, you saw somebody go into your neighbor's house, and they said, yes, I saw him. He attacked her. And then a little bit later, they just hung up. But this mysterious caller gave an exact location. They said which apartment number it was. And so, of course, the police have to show up. And they show up to an absolutely brutal scene. When the police get there, there were no signs of forced entry, but they immediately stumble on Annalisa Raymundo's body right in front of her door. She was face up. It was like she was trying to crawl and leave, but she had ultimately given up. Her injuries were so incredibly severe, and the house was in total disarray. There had been some type of brawl. And Annalisa was a fit girl. She really fought for her life. But this killer seemingly came into the house, may have been let in, and they used anything within their vicinity to murder this woman who had never done anything to anybody. Anna had been stabbed 9 times in the face, the neck, and the chest, only after somebody beat her with a 10-pound dumbbell that was in her house. They circled the entire living room, knocking over plants, books, anything in the vicinity. I mean, Annalisa was fighting for her life, but there was nothing that she could do when somebody is hitting her in the head with a 10-pound dumbbell. After this person had beat her into submission, they stabbed her 9 times. And also, these stabs in the face, like, to me, that always says, I hate you, I don't want to see your face anymore, I want to take this away from you. Like, stabbing somebody in the face is so personal. The investigators pick up on this because somebody had been let into the home, there was no forced entry, and also it was personal, and they knew Annalisa's schedule. So the first person that they called to the house is Nelson Sessler. When they tell him that his girlfriend, Annalisa Raymundo, had been found beaten and stabbed in her home on a day that she was just remotely working, his response was a bit of confusion. And then he went upstairs to take a nap. And the police were like, "Are you kidding me? This is some of the strangest behavior that we have ever seen at a crime scene." Now, given the subject of this video, you know that Nelson is not the person that did it. In fact, I'll just go ahead and tell you this now. He wasn't involved in this at all. But him going to sleep near the boat dock while they were investigating his new girlfriend's murder just sent alarm bells to police, and understandably so. But now that we know he wasn't involved, sure, this was a strange reaction, but like I said, Sheila liked to pick guys that were very quiet. Maybe they had a lot of confusing or mixed emotions, and so they kind of just shut everything down. And maybe him just sleeping it off is his way of coping with an incredibly stressful situation. I know that's exactly what some of y'all do. But the police just go all in on investigating Nelson. They're fully convinced that he did it. But a couple things happened. So they take him in for questioning that night. And God damn it, Nelson's demeanor is still so strange. I think we've actually looked at enough cases at this point that like you can't always trust somebody just being strange after a murder because everybody acts differently, right? But the police really think that he did it. However, he didn't have any marks on his body that would indicate some type of life and death struggle. I mean, this was a brawl. There was blood, hair, scratches. I mean, just everything. And Nelson didn't have a mark on him. There is no way that he would have been in that brawl and not have gotten so much as a single bruise. And then, to top it off, later on, they check his alibi. Nelson was at work that day, and they trust the security systems of Purdue Pharma. Not only did they have logs of him clocking in, clocking out, being on property, but he was all over all the cameras. Nelson's alibi was airtight. The police were just completely stumped. They were ready and fully convinced that he was involved and he did it. But when they saw that man walking around them halls at Purdue Pharma, they said, oh my God, it's not him. But here's the crazy thing. Nelson never thinks to mention Sheila Davalloo in this interview because despite all of her strange little stalker behaviors, like showing up at the airport, he doesn't suspect anything. He literally doesn't suspect anything. He thinks that Sheila is just a chill girl that he used to hook up with, and there's no way that she could ever be involved, to the point that he doesn't even mention her name to the police. But then, after he leaves the station, guess who's barking up his tree? Miss Sheila. Because now, as a manipulator, she assumes that Nelson is in a vulnerable state. Sure, he is. His girlfriend just died. And she moves in to give him a little bit of comfort. And then they start right back up again. You know, I've told you guys this before. Quince is known for their $50 cashmere sweaters. Now, look, if you're walking around wearing cashmere, yes, it's true. People will stop and touch your sweater and they will say, oh my God, is that cashmere? They're not going to believe that you got it for $50. They're just not. It's generally pretty expensive. But Quince makes it possible to put it on your body at reasonable prices with good quality. Yes, Quince products are priced 50 to 80% less than other brands. And really, genuinely, truly, I'm still kind of stuck on the cashmere because look, you know, compliments aside, good deal aside, do you know how good it feels to just be walking around in some buttery smooth cashmere? If anything, I might just put it on for the ego boost. You know, I want to feel good. You always want to feel good in what you're wearing, right? But look, they got other stuff too. Leather jackets, soft denim, cotton cardigans, so much more. Anything you want. Multiple cuts, styles, materials. But I mean, above all, it's the price. And look, how are they actually able to do that? Quince partners with top factories, so they cut out the middleman by doing that. There's no third party there sucking out all the money that's supposed to be back in our wallets. No, they just go straight to the factory. Now, I told y'all, the sweaters are nice. The blankets are nice. But my favorite thing is still the gold vermeil earrings that I showed you guys a couple of weeks ago. Yes, they hold up. Yes, they look fantastic. And yes, I am not angry about the price. You know, every time I put something on that I got a good deal on, you know, your boy is so happy. And look, you can get a good deal too. If you want free shipping and 365 days of free returns, then just go to quince.com/sinister. Come on, it's almost winter. Get cozy in Quince's essential wardrobe items. That's quince.com/sinister. The police are still working pretty hard on the case, and they come up with a couple of things. Well, one, there's a blood stain inside of the bathroom in Annalise's house that they find to be very suspicious. It seems like there wasn't a brawl inside of the bathroom. It seemed like the attacker had maybe cleaned themselves in the bathroom. They're waiting for some testing on this blood sink in the condo. And then also, some people had mentioned that there was this guy named Gary Riley. He was kind of a petty criminal that people knew around town, but he was talking about killing people. So he got reported to the authorities and they investigated him, but it turned out Gary was really just a big talker. He was just talking a bunch of smack. He didn't know anything about the case. He didn't seem suspicious at all. He just seemed like he wanted to be regarded as dangerous. So the police keep looking while they're waiting for information about this blood stain to come back. Was it Annalisa's or was it somebody else's? Meanwhile, Sheila and Nelson continue their affair while her relationship with second husband Paul has really fizzled out. This had just kind of been going on for a while. You know, Sheila gets bored. She's not comfortable just slipping into a cozy housewife lifestyle or something. She needs some kind of stimulation. Also, interesting to note here that one of the few times that Sheila was coherent during her interview on Killer Women, she said something about her relationship with Paul having really trailed off, but she was angry because she was like, I'm the breadwinner. Why should I have to leave? She really disliked Paul and thought very highly of herself. Sure, if she's the breadwinner, she owns the house or something like that, like, yeah, you can think, wow, I am this pillar of the relationship. But if you don't like your spouse, you should leave. You don't need to berate them. You don't need to cheat on them. You don't need to keep them in the house so that you can put yourself up on a pedestal by thinking lowly about your spouse, but you won't leave them. It's interesting because she stayed for a reason, but that reason was not because she liked Paul. I mean, she treated him like total garbage. The relationship was completely non-romantic. They were basically just roommates, and she's cheating on him with Nelson this entire time. Also, you remember that little tidbit that I told you in the beginning about Sheila's schizophrenic brother? It wasn't true. Sheila was an only child, hence why she probably enjoyed having so much attention from all of these guys. She never had a brother. And she certainly never had a schizophrenic brother who was coming down week over week. It was actually Nelson that was coming over. And so Sheila was such a master manipulator, and hate to give her that title, but I mean, she really, that is her identity. She's a fucking manipulator. She manipulated this man so hard into believing, he needed to be a good man and a good husband, and take all of his stuff, any trace of his existence, and get it out of the house. Like, she wasn't helping him, pack up these things week over week. It was, okay, Paul, get your shit and get out. Bye now. Bye. Nelson, come on over. And like, why? Like, just leave at that point. Like, just leave. I'm sure you guys in the comments might have a couple of theories of like why she didn't leave. I think there's an element of her wanting to monkey bar to the next relationship. She wants to line up something solid with Nelson before she leaves Paul. But then too, I think she also was siphoning some type of ego from him by thinking so lowly of him and keeping him around. I mean, we say this all the time. Just leave. Just leave. It's going to be better. It's going to be better for everybody, including you. So the schizophrenic brother was just one of the most insane lies, but she tells Paul several lies all day, every day. And one day she decides to stop lying and she tells Paul that she wants to play a game. It's not a sexual game. It's just like a fun little, let's do something cute. Let's do something fun. And Paul says, okay. Sure. Well, it's not a sex game, but Sheila decides to handcuff and blindfold Paul. And he says, oh, okay. And she's like, okay, I'm gonna lock you up here, and then I'm gonna put some fun objects on your lap, and you have to guess what the thing is. And Paul's like, okay, sounds good. So Paul lays down. He's completely blindfolded, hands are handcuffed behind his back, and he can't use his hands to feel the object. He has to just kind of guess what it is on his lap. So she puts the first item down, and it's pretty easy. It's their dog, and, he guesses it. And she uses a couple of other odd items. She uses an ink cartridge and puts that in his lap. And then she uses a Spider-Man figurine, puts that in his lap. And then for the last item, before they switch, she was like, okay, let's try this one. And then Paul instead feels something really sharp on his chest. Sheila has stabbed him, but she says it was an accident. Paul later recalled and said, she said there was one last item, one last thing to guess, and I felt her sit on me, and then I felt a thrust, like a heavy weight was on my chest, and then another thrust. Paul is bleeding profusely in their bed, in their home. So he asks Sheila, hey, I'm feeling really weak over here. I need you to call 911. I need you to call the police. And she says, okay. And she gets on the phone and she says, oh my God, Paul, it's busy. And he said, okay, well, call him back. And she said, oh my God, it's busy. The 911 is too busy to answer me. He says, please, can you call back? I'm getting really light over here. And she's, oh, they're busy. For 30 minutes, as Paul bled out, Sheila claimed that 911 was busy. The line was tied up. Paul just trusting that his wife wouldn't just let him bleed out here. And never mind the fact that she just stabbed me. It was an accident and it's gonna be okay. And, they're waiting for God knows what, but about 30 minutes pass and eventually Sheila is like, hey, why don't we try to go somewhere? Why don't we go to a walk-in clinic? And Paul is like, okay, yeah, let's do that. Which in retrospect, Sheila saying, let's go to an urgent care after you've been stabbed twice in the chest is like actually insane. But she suggested a walk-in clinic, kind of telling him the injuries were, this is, we can do this. It's going to be okay. And then he says, okay, let's go. And then she says, oh no, Paul. Oh my God, I've lost the keys. And Paul is just bleeding at this point from a double puncture wound in his chest. And he says, well, we have to get to the clinic. Like, this is not good. And Sheila goes, oh my God, I can't find the guy. I'm looking for the keys, Paul. I'm looking for the keys. And she's running around. She's looking for the keys. And he's like, well, you have to get me out of here. And then Sheila goes, Paul, I'm going to have to break the chair. Stand back. And he was sitting in some kind of chair for this little game. And she claimed that she was going to have to smash the chair in order to get him out of there. So what she's doing is the perfect combo of, I'm going to help you and let's just waste time here and see if he bleeds out. That's what she was waiting for. She was waiting for Paul to die. So Sheila is trying to break the chair in half, and while all this craziness is going on, she knows that Paul needs medical attention. And so after she breaks the chair in half, I'm just never going to get over that detail. It's actually crazy. She eventually gets Paul into the car and they drive to the hospital. And of course, as you may have guessed, if you're somebody that watches a lot of true crime cases, Sheila was driving very slow. Now, eventually they get to the Westchester County Hospital in New York, and she does not pull up to the emergency room entrance. Instead, she pulls into the hospital parking lot, a fairly isolated one, by the way. And I think this is the moment, like, for Paul as a man, because men kind of gaslight themselves out of their own pain sometimes. And they're like, oh, I can't show that I'm hurt right now. I need to be a man, stuff like that. So when it comes to the pain, he was really kind of trusting Sheila. But I can just imagine his, like, dad brain, like, kicking into high gear when he sees that they're in this desolate parking lot and they're gonna have to walk all the way over there to the hospital. Like, Sheila, no, this is ridiculous. Now this doesn't make sense. And so she's still pretending to be a doting wife, and she comes around to the side of the car where he is, and she opens the door and she stabs him again in the parking lot. She stabs him again, and he doesn't see the knife when it's coming in, but he actually said later in court that he could see when she pulled back, he saw the knife. And that's when he realized, holy fuck, she's trying to kill me. Like, it just all clicked. And then he tries to grab the knife. A whole struggle breaks out. And he's like, oh my God, I need help. So he starts screaming. He's like making a scene. This is life or fucking death. And his wife is trying to kill him. Paul manages to get out of the car, grab the knife, throw it far away into some bushes. And he is yelling loudly enough that a witness sees him and comes to help. Sheila is like, oh shit. Like, this is the first time that she has just royally been caught. And so she gets back into the car and speeds off. Paul, after being stabbed multiple times in the chest and not getting any help for over an hour now, is rushed into emergency surgery. Now, when this witness at the hospital gets involved and tells, the hospital staff what happened, they call the police and they're looking for this lady. And it does not take them very long to find Sheila Davalloo. Davalloo, because there's this witness that seems pretty solid, and Paul is literally in the hospital getting surgery, and they're not sure if he's going to make it. She's immediately charged with attempted murder, assault, and criminal possession of a weapon. And then when they start to talk to her, her story just doesn't really make sense. First, Sheila tells the investigators that Paul injured himself at work. And they're like, we're not buying that. That's not true. Paul said that you stabbed him. And so then she changes her story. She actually tells the investigators at one point about their little game of guessing the items. And she said, well, I thought it would be fun to, do this paring knife at the end. And while I was holding it, he just sat up and he just went right into the knife. And then he did it again. And so the investigators are like, so he lunged himself into the knife that you were holding twice. She said, yeah. That's kind of how Sheila is. She'll just say, well, yeah. And then just move to the next subject. It's kind of confusing when you speak to her and you're trying to get anything out of her. And now things are about to get a lot worse for Sheila because Annalise Raymundo's case was never solved. It has been years and an arrest was never made. And now they're realizing that Sheila was connected to that case all along. After her arrest is when Nelson finally finds out after years that Sheila is married. While they're investigating Paul's stabbing, which happened in 2003, they really start to connect all the dots. One, they go through Sheila's phone and they see that she knows Nelson and she's been talking to him regularly for quite a while. And then when the police confront Nelson, well, he admits that he'd been dating Sheila on and off for a while, but he didn't think it was a big deal because she's chill. He actually told the police that he, quote, didn't think her mental health was at all questionable and that she showed no signs of instability. He really looked right at this woman and said, no, she never could have done that. That's how much of a manipulator she was. During the investigation, they uncovered so much more about Sheila and her obsession with Nelson that just flew right under the radar for everyone because she was pretending to be normal. They found out that Sheila had been Googling Nelson's name daily, multiple times, like just looking for anything. What was she even looking for? Nothing. It was obsession. They also found out about the Las Vegas trip that Sheila just randomly bought a ticket when she didn't have anything to do in Vegas other than see Nelson. This is also when they found out that Sheila had access to Nelson's voicemails. Can you imagine being that guy and thinking that this girl you're hooking up with, like everything's cool, everything's normal, it's fun, but she is stalking you at the airport, listening to your voicemails, Googling your name constantly, and literally killed your girlfriend? Like, I mean, just like all of these things clicking at once for Nelson had to have been absolutely terrifying. Investigators also found that Sheila had checked out of work the morning of Anna's murder. She had gone in and saw that Anna was working from home that day. And so she checked out of work. And here's a big one, just in case you think Sheila just snapped one day and showed up to her house. No, this was all very planned. And I feel like it might have been much more sinister. When they went to search her apartment, first, the investigators found receipts and packaging for stun guns. They also found inside of her home a lock-picking kit and night vision goggles. She was planning something much darker than this. Now, Paul's attempted murder, which he survived, by the way, the surgery was successful, is what kicked off everything into this investigation. Now, finally, 5 years after the murder of Annalise Raymundo, Sheila is finally charged. Now, she's already been charged for the attempted murder of her husband, but now she might serve another 50 years for this planned murder. She never went to trial for Anna's murder until 2012, but shockingly, she decided to represent herself in court. There's a part of me that wonders if Sheila may not have gotten the maximum sentence if she didn't represent herself. She came off as a know-it-all. She came off as arrogant. She came off as pretty fucking psychopathic because, like I told you guys earlier, she had to cross-examine Nelson. And she really just acted like it was really creepy to watch. And so the jury watching this trial of her acting like she didn't do it to the people that she did it to was just really bizarre. So Nelson, when he was on the stand, he actually shared a couple of letters that Sheila had written to him after her attempted murder on Paul. While he was on the stand, he actually said this, quote, "I had no idea that she was obsessed. We never had that kind of relationship where we shared the word love. It was just completely left field for me." Now, a lot of the questions the prosecution asked him were pretty normal, but then when Sheila would come in for the cross-exam, it just got so weird. She actually, at one point, even tried to accuse Nelson of possibly killing Anna himself. Through both of the cross-examinations, it was clear that Sheila thought that she was very smart and she was being calculated and manipulative, just as she was in these two murder cases. She actually displayed her worst traits by representing herself while thinking that she was really doing her big one. She also had to cross-examine Paul, the man that she used to be married to and tried to murder. Paul gave an interesting detail. He said, quote, "During a certain time period, Sheila would talk about this love triangle every day. She would constantly ask me why Jack would do this and what he was thinking and what Melissa should do." It sounds to me like Sheila was so obsessed with Nelson that she wanted to talk about him at all times, so she concocted this strange story so that she could even talk to Paul about her new lover, Nelson. Now, during the trial, it came out that that strange blood stain that was in the sink in Anna's apartment, it was a direct DNA match to Sheila. And not only that, but when Paul was on the stand, he said that Sheila had a deep cut on her hand around the time of the murder, which would also explain the blood in the bathroom sink. She probably cut herself on the knife while she was stabbing her. Sheila tried to hinge her argument on a few silly things. One, she claimed, "I never was at that house and I never went into that bathroom." And the prosecutor was like, "Okay, but then why was your blood in there?" And she was like, "I don't know, but I wasn't there." And like, that's really just, that was it. She was like, "I wasn't there." She also tried to make a big deal about this one bit of information. She said, the investigators found blue contact lenses, but neither me nor Anna wore blue contact lenses. So whose contact lenses were those? That was actually one of her arguments, which is just crazy. Like, judging by the night vision goggles and the lock picking kit, I would not be surprised if she also at some point had bought a mask and colored contacts because she thought she was so smart. Yeah, they're probably hers. Check some receipts. Another comment she made was that, quote, "Anna had a weight advantage over her and it would be hard for Sheila to beat her in hand-to-hand combat." Bitch, first of all, absolutely not. I hate this because to me, this feels like a jab at Anna. Anna was a small girl. They were both small women, okay? They were not, there was no 30 or 40 pound discrepancy, okay? And the hand-to-hand combat comment is ridiculous because we know that she was stabbed and bludgeoned. There is no hand-to-hand combat when somebody else has two weapons. Now, despite her earnest and quite frankly embarrassing attempt at defending herself, they found her guilty and they sentenced her to 50 years for the murder of Annalise Raymundo. And then this was so annoying too. Afterwards, Sheila actually had the audacity to, quote, "thank God, her family, the Department of Corrections, the prosecutor, as well as the Raymundo family." No, I'd be like, "Bitch, don't thank me. Keep my name out your mouth. Don't say nothing. Don't say nothing. Just go, just shut it. Shut the slammer." Now, between her two sentences, the earliest that she would ever be released would be in 2079 when she is 110 years old. This case is so just all around insane. It's just such a classic case of predator and prey. The prey being these guys who were emotionally disconnected, a little too trusting, just too kind. And then also her becoming obsessed with a man who was in a relationship with a woman who didn't do anything wrong and never deserved this. Sheila had an entitlement to these men and their attention. She was incredibly arrogant and she was willing to lie about anything to get what she wanted by any means necessary. And I think one of the scariest things about Sheila is not that she'll just lie to your face and try to act like you're stupid. If you upset her, Sheila Davalloo will kill you.